Suddenly I heard the sweet sounds of fapping over the camera board.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 537 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Joining me, Paul E. Cooley. How you doing, man? Are those clouds of yellow dust coming out of your mouth and nose pollen?
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah, pollen apocalypse came in and kicked my ass. So I've been pretty ill the last 5 days, but doctor gave me a shot. I'm on Claritin, inhaler, and all the usual bullshit, but just taking.
Considered like an oxygen mask?
I had to go outside and mow the lawn yesterday, and when I came back in, I was covered in pollen.
Have you heard about, lawn services?
They cost money that I do not have.
Ah, well, there is that.
Yeah. So there you go. I will be more than happy to pass that mantle on once we reach a more stable foothold. But anyway, so when I'm not trying or working so hard to try and breathe, I finally got my robot working last night.
It's going to take over the world.
No, it's
and
not
millions will die.
I didn't get the robot working so much as my software dealing with the robot was working. It was a wonderful thing. So today I have done no work on that project. I'm not going to do any more work on that project today, since technically I stopped working on it this morning. So then tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, all writing, all very normal hours.
I totally think that the guy that's hired you to work on the robot should call you up and go, "It's gone. What did you write? It's missing. Where is the robot?"
That would be a neat trick since it's sitting right here next to me on the floor.
It's missing.
That would be
I think it's looking at something.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, See, you have these great fantasies that what I do is actually that interesting.
And you're always ready with a pin to pop my bubble.
And while I'm flattered, I could no more make Skynet than you could win a Caribbean bikini competition.
I could totally win a Caribbean bikini competition. I could do it.
Okay, Terry.
Of course, I'd look like Borat, but hey, what the heck?
Worse than Borat. People will be like, "I didn't know that much. Are you part gorilla?"
That's you that's hairy, not
You're
me.
Silverback, right?
I have known a few guys like that. That is not me, thank God.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Imagine just having to go wax your entire body so it'd stick to everything like Velcro. Oh, no, thank you.
I can't even imagine.
Anyway, I'm working on a project with a couple of folks and doing some collaboration on that, some planning out of this, that, and the other. And we're heavily using Archivos.digital at the moment to do all that. And of course, I'm laying out my own stuff in there. So work in progress, still very much going on. And then I have this other thing I'm working on as well, because I just can't leave well enough alone. And now I have to write a story for an anthology.
Oh, you sound like that is like a big negative.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. No, the horrifying thing is trying to come up with something special, but not too special.
You can do it.
Yeah, so I've been told. Anyway, that's what's up in my world. How have you been, sir?
I completed the work that I needed to do for the next Vigilante book, so I could switch back to writing on Blood of Patriots. I was on the verge of getting sick. I think I may have slid past it this one time. So I haven't written in the last 2 or 3 days, but I got another chapter and a half done. So I'm happy with that. Tomorrow I'll get back to writing on a more regular basis, but it's good to have a couple of days of just doing other things and relaxing when you finish a project.
Yes, which is why I'm taking the rest of this week off from what I've been working on so I can focus on other shit.
I should totally add that into my schedule, that I'm going to take a couple of days off after finishing any project up.
I think you have to have that celebratory lap. You just need to give yourself a couple days to go, okay, I've done this. take a moment, get back to it. The moment should just, be a 3-day getaway in Vegas.
Or you could go next month to like a 3-day getaway in Napa Valley.
Napa Valley. Why Napa Valley?
Because I'm going up there to do some writing related stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. When are you leaving for that?
April. I think I'm leaving the 22nd of April.
Okay. I think I had that written down. I need to get a guest host.
Yeah, I'll be gone all that week. I'll leave on Monday and fly back on Friday.
Okay.
So I'll arrive the day before and leave the day after, so I don't have to be rushed.
Mm-hmm. A likely story. Mm-hmm.
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Uh-huh. Lies. There is no sticking.
Depends on the story.
Well, it goes without saying, really.
Let's see. Other than that, the Tree of Liberty audiobook is done. It's out in the wild. Veronica is already working on Hidden Enemies, so life is good there. I'm also doing an anthology short story. I actually need to write the first 500 words of another story beyond that in the next month or so and get it off to see whether or not it's going to be accepted or not. Things are productive. Things are good. I'm in a good mental space.
I'm glad to hear it.
The way we work is we're like yin and yang. I'm doing great. You're doing shit. I'm doing that, and Minnie is reaching out and smacking my hand. She's like, I'll play with you.
I'm actually doing okay. It's just between being sick and this project, which by the way pays, it's just been kind of trying to get cranking on things, but I'm in pretty good mental space simply because I've had so much to do. There's not much time to think, if you know what I mean. So yeah, we're doing good.
Cats, they help.
Not mine.
It's because you have psychos. Cat psychos.
Oh, I only have one that's psycho. Keko is not psycho. Shadow is most definitely psycho. But enough about your putty.
But enough about my putty. What I think we will talk about this week, Paul, is the things you've got to be careful about.
There's things you have to be careful about?
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
I'm talking about things that if you touch it, you could die. So, Paul, let's talk about something dangerous today.
Dangerous?
Really, really, really dangerous.
How dangerous are we talking? Third rail, antimatter, what?
Exactly what I was thinking. Third rail.
Third rail.
Things that writers might be tempted to touch that would shock them into death or really hurt them badly. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's all semantics and depends you want. But let's talk about a few of the subjects that you're taking your writerly life into your hands.
I assume you're talking about from the audience or from etc.
Reaction from the audience.
Okay.
I mean, we could lead off with the obvious one, politics.
That depends.
No matter what you say, you're going to offend 40% of your potential readers.
Oh, at least that number. But depending on the kind of book you're writing, if that's your intent, then go for it.
Well, it's not to say you shouldn't do it, but you should go into it with your eyes wide open.
Just know that there will be comment.
Let's take that step back and look at there. What we want to talk about being the third rail of writing isn't to say that you shouldn't do it, but be aware of the consequences before you do it. Go into it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to write, rock on. I like plenty of authors that do cover those sort of things, but they knew the risks when they did it.
It's one of those deals where there's some other topics that are very third rail. Abuse of animals.
Yes.
Big time trigger, whether you realize it or not. It's huge. Rape.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. Racism is going to be a problem. Misogynism is going to be a problem.
Sexism of its various flavors.
Yes, and you're also going to have the same kind of problem with religion.
Mm-hmm.
If your characters start espousing one particular viewpoint over and over again, then whoever runs counter to that viewpoint, it probably isn't going to think very much about the story.
I'm going to quibble a little bit with you on that. There's a difference between having your characters espouse a viewpoint and lecturing your readers through the narrative.
True, but I would say
there's less danger of having a character be some way of offending people than there is by you doing it through the narrative.
Very true. Me as a reader, I get pissed off when somebody only presents one side of an argument as if it's the only side. That's when I have a problem. So, I mean, it's just like trying to make a world that's nothing but, white heterosexual people. That's not a world. That's not the world I live in. But I mean, if that's what you want to work, right, cool and groovy and everything, but it's probably not really a realistic story that I want to read. But that's just me.
One of the problems with depending on what you're trying to write is that online there are a lot more people these days that are willing to go get people with like-minded views as themselves and come running after you to go ahead and torch and burn you online. It's a real risk that you have to be cautious of to at least know what you're getting into.
Let's see, Scalzi. Who's the other guy who was writing? God damn it, I can't remember his name. God damn it. Look, there was another writer who got dropped from by Disney for Star Wars. Can't remember his name. Anyway,
I don't know him, but yeah,
for reasons of the same kind of deal.
Oh, this was Chuck Wendig.
Yeah, Chuck Wendig. There we go. Yeah. So it's
Chuck. Didn't he get dropped for really not what he said, but how he said it? He went on like a tear.
Yes, because
tear.
Because he gets attacked by thousands of people every day.
Well, I'm not saying that, but the excuse for dropping him wasn't his disagreeing with them. It was the method of his disagreeing with them and the profane rants that Chuck Wendig is well known for.
Right. Which they
should have known.
Which they cleared. He said, I have this online presence. This is what I do. And they were like, great, cool. And then they basically came back and said, not cool.
Yeah.
So
you never know what they're going to use as an excuse to hammer you. But today online, if you take a viewpoint that has detractors, they will come after you.
Sure. Absolutely. It will happen. It will happen eventually. Eventually you'll get told you're going to hell. Eventually you'll get told you're furthering the gay agenda. Eventually
I've been told that one.
Yes, I know.
I've actually heard that one.
You and I both have. I
had a secondary character that was gay, that was married to a same sex. And I was told I was promoting the homosexual agenda.
Yeah.
I wasn't told that by very many people, mind you, because I didn't make a big deal out of it, but a couple of people mentioned it.
Yeah. Several people got triggered by the way that I portrayed the, the military in Derelict. Well, go fuck yourself. It's 500 years in the future. If everything is the same, we are fucked as a species. That's basically what that's how I thought about it. Things have to evolve and things have to obey reality. So it's just a matter of, that was a choice I made. I know I triggered some people with talk about cannabidiol and THC. I know I triggered people with all sorts of things that I did. Okay, fine. Some of those people are never going to read me again. Okay, fine. That's what I wrote. Live with the reviews, live with the comments, and move the fuck on. That's all there is to it.
Look at the number of people that went after Jake Bible for how many times he dropped the F-bomb in one chapter.
Now, in Jake's defense, I have gotten that in every book I have written. In fact, I think there's one old lady out there who just basically goes for military science fiction books and is immediately offended by the profanity, but keeps reading the series. So she can comment on every book how much profanity there is.
It's a hobby.
Get a fucking life. Seriously. Good God. Why can't you people write science military books without profanity? Because there is no military out there that doesn't fucking use it.
Here's something for the ladies out there, the little old ladies that are offended by profanity in the military. As somebody who served, when I was active duty, every third word was an F-bomb of some type or fashion.
It was a form of, or a article of speech.
It's true.
It was an adjective. It was an adverb. It was a noun. It was a verb. It was everything. It
took me more than a year after I was out
to get programmed,
to have my speech patterns return to something that's a little bit more socially acceptable.
Because it's a different environment. And if you're going to portray some of those things realistically, there are some things that you're going to have to deal with.
One of the things that you should deal with if you're portraying a set of circumstances to those not inside of it is, even though you're being true to it, you may want to modify it in some ways to be more acceptable to the general audience.
Well, it's just there are ways to do things where it's not lecturing, where it's just a wrinkle. There are ways to show off a detail of something and not even comment on it. Mm-hmm. Just basically, this is the way it is. And then you see it in action. You don't have to have it explained necessarily. So there's no preaching involved if you handle it that way. You just let it be seen that things work differently in this society. You don't have to comment on it at all. It's very simple. It's just the way these people live, and that's that. You don't have to make a political statement out of it. You don't have to sit there and preach. All it has to be is, this is the way things are. There it is. And as long as that is where the things are and people are just kind of moving through it, then it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter at all.
Everything that you read, you're judging it based upon your taste. You may not like all the F-bombs. That's fine. There are 10 million other books out there that you could be reading. Go out there and look for something.
Not military science fiction. There won't be.
I beg to differ. I've read a ton of military science fiction that doesn't have lots of F-bombs.
You said 10 million. I am not sure that number is even close to the right number, but continue.
Well, I meant in general, not necessarily military science fiction in specific. But you can definitely find other books out there that do not have that type of thing in there. If you find an author that writes something that is not to your taste, do everybody a favor and move along and find a different author.
Yeah, pretty much. There's not much else to really be, said about it. But, at the same time, if they say something that pisses you off, why did it piss you off to begin with? It's fiction.
I don't even begin to know how to answer that. I'm still coming to grips with the fact that if I don't like a story, it's a matter of my taste.
Mm-hmm. Of course it is.
That's hard for me as a reader, because sometimes I read a story that I really don't like for one reason or another, and I feel like condemning that story because I didn't like it. And I have to drag myself back from the edge and say, it's just taste. It's just taste. It's just you. Other people like it just fine. Move along. But there's been a couple of times where I've started a post on Facebook because something just so offended me about a book. And then I just started listing down in the comments every time they did something else that offended me in this book.
Yeah.
And then I'd go back and delete the post because that's not where I really want to go. But it's just so much that I have to say something because, oh my God, really?
There's a certain writer who's still on Twitter. He left Facebook. I'm not going to mention his name. I love him. He would watch a movie or read a book, and he would live tweet like after every chapter or every scene or something of a movie that he hadn't seen before, or while he was reading a book. He would tweet like every so many thousand words that he read. And it was really funny because it was like, all right, things are really moving slow, this, that, and the other. Oh, okay. Character introductions are over. Oh, didn't see that coming. And it was just like, it was this long string of narrative that was going on, what he thought about that scene or whatever else without describing the scene. It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
It
Except
was
I
wonderful.
wasn't being hilarious. I was listing out what I saw was flaws.
Right.
And
Yes.
once I calmed down a little bit and pulled myself back from the edge, I deleted the posts. I've done it like 2 or 3 times over the time I've been on Facebook, and it's wrong. That's not the guy I want to be. So I do delete those posts, but sometimes I get spun up and I start doing that, and I really shouldn't.
I usually, what I'll do is I'll take something. I do this for my Patreon podcast. Of course, I haven't done it in a while, but is I'll write a movie or book review, and even if I didn't care for the movie or the book, I will go after some topic tangentially related to it that brought it up and why I didn't like the way it was handled or how it could better have been handled. It's not to say it was absolute shit. It's basically find something good to say. If you can't find anything good to say at all, then you can just basically say it was a movie. Move on.
I can tell you that if I chance across a movie or a book that I have nothing good to say about, I didn't finish it.
Right.
I'll have walked out of that movie. I will have put that book down. And there have been times when I've done both.
And that's part of the issue, right? Is like I've heard this several times. If you don't finish the book, don't review it. Because you don't know what happened. If you quit reading at the first chapter, you are not capable of giving a honest evaluation of the book or the movie. All you can say is, I couldn't get through it.
Which is a good reason why I should never leave a review of The Dome.
Under the Dome? Yeah, I haven't read that.
Justin assigned it. I tried to read it, gave up. Every time you started liking a character, something bad happened to them. I was done.
Poor Terry.
That is not the kind of story I want to read.
I know. It's not your taste.
This should tell you something, though. I actually got all the way through the Guillermo del Toro book about vampires, all the way through to the end of it. Even though by the end of book 1, I was rooting for the vampires, I still managed to reach the end.
I don't understand you at all. We will have to agree to disagree on your opinion of that book and those characters.
I'm just going to have to go here and go
God.
down this little sidetrack.
Here we go.
The characters, the way they came across in the book, they felt like idiots to me. They felt like they didn't have a brain to share between them. And they started deserving the bad things that were happening to them. The things that the vampires were doing were actually much more intelligent seeming than it. So I started rooting for the bad guys because they were more relatable.
Huh. Well, you're full of shit. Bumbling around is totally expected when suddenly you come across something that makes no goddamn sense. Meanwhile, you have 3 or 4 things falling down around you, like the city, your marriage, and everything else that's going on, while everyone else around you gets embroiled and sucked into this mess. It's kind of hard for a character to get footing on that. And yeah, they did some really dumb things. But that's to be expected from my side of things because completely unprepared. You're going to do dumb shit. Oh, I distilled some oil. Well, it ate you. Why did you distill it? Because I didn't fucking know what it was. Very simple. It's hard to believe something like that is some old dude just comes up and says, those are vampires, and you're just going to believe him as a scientist? No. So you're going to treat it like a plague and do stupid shit because you don't know what it is.
But in any case, that movie, that book rather, was more relatable than Under the Dome.
Interesting.
Personal taste.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of killing off main characters early in a book. I don't like I don't like putting a prologue or a first chapter where we introduce a character and then kill him on screen. It's just, why do that?
Because George R.R. Martin got away with it. It's
much more interesting to have that character up to the point where they get killed if they're part of the prologue or something along those lines, or have them die off screen and not even tell the audience about it. Because then when you find out what that was, then it suddenly makes sense and you see where it fits in the story and everything else, and you don't set up expectations of what that was. Just a little trick.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, I watched the entire first season of that. I think we were assigned and I read the first book of it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I made it all the way through the end of the first book. So it was more relatable than Under the Dome. And lots of bad things happened in that to people.
Are you kidding? Nothing good happened in that book.
So that says something about Under the Dome, where it was so egregious that I could not get past the first few chapters, whereas I made it through the first book of Game of Thrones.
What did you think about the first season of Game of Thrones?
It was interesting. It had other things than the characters that were interesting, which helped get you past the places where he killed off everybody that you ever liked. If you get to liking somebody, they're going to die. It's like watching The Walking Dead.
Peter Dinklage, I can't remember the character's name now. I drink and I know things. I can't remember.
I know you're talking about
Tyrion. He was such a minor part of the book, and the series, he was the best part of the book. He was the best part of the series.
Sometimes that's the way it happens.
And I think that's really funny how that works. And we've seen that work before in other TV adaptations of books before, where somebody who should have or was a minor character, suddenly the writers decide, hey, wait, you really should have made this a bigger character, or this is much more fun. I just find it interesting that goes on, because I think some of us don't understand how maybe a minor character people just kind of latch onto and they want to see more of those stories. I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's happened before. I've had people send me notes saying, hey, what are you going to do more with character X, some minor character in there? And you're like, well, they're really done with what I'm doing with this. I'm not going to do anything else with them. But okay. I don't know why you're that attached to them, but I accept it.
Well, for some reason they struck a chord. Weird, eclectic characters like that. I mean, I don't think Jim Butcher decided Butters was going to be a major thing. I think it just happened because he was a fun character.
Mm-hmm. I could sort of see that, writing a novel where you take a bunch of secondary characters and put them on the hot spot and call it the second string.
Red shirts.
I actually have that book, but I haven't read it.
I haven't read it either. I don't think I've ever read anything by Scalzi.
I've read Old Man's War.
I remember when that was a podcast about 1,000 years ago.
I don't remember it being podcast, but I read it, God, before I knew who he was.
Right.
I just picked up the book off a used bookshelf when I was younger and read it.
Cool.
Now I know who he is. Maybe that's a bad thing.
Anyway,
speaking of, just so that I can tell you this, if you are a member of the Tor book club, the Collapsing Empire by Scalzi is free this month.
Interesting.
So if you're a member of that, you can download it and read it. If that's your thing.
If that's what gets your kink on.
But let's step back to the third rail aspect, because we've went a little off track here.
No, us? No. Come on.
We've talked about how you've got to walk into this with your eyes open. If you're going to do something that is going to get part of your audience riled up, it's going to have an impact on your sales. Some of these authors that you see that are controversial, they feed off of that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. There's no such thing as bad PR, they say.
But if you're not, John Scalzi, you may be taking your profession in your hands if you do something too egregious that offends half your audience. When your audience is small, half is a big deal.
True.
And it's not to say that you shouldn't do something egregious. That's all in the thing of what you're doing as a writer. I'm definitely not advising you not to have certain points of view that are going to rile people up. By all means, write what you want. Just do it with an understanding that your readers may not feel the same way you do.
Yeah, and there may be some backlash from all that.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. I mean, if you're nobody and don't have anything going on, then it might actually work to your favor.
It could.
I don't know. I have no idea.
And you can maybe go ahead and navigate the turbulent waters of creating that kind of hoopla around your books, your characters, yourself.
Yeah.
But just like the recent stuff going on with the Nebula Awards, it can be destructive to your personal life as a writer if a bunch of people online decide to make you a target. And I don't want to see anyone be a target.
No, it's you know, it really pisses me off, and we found this out way back in the day with Usenet. People are willing to say stuff to other people online that they would never fucking say if they were sitting right across from the person in question.
It's because it's much easier in person to punch somebody in the face.
It's also much easier to be a fucking asshole when you don't have to live with the consequences. And that fucking shit just needs to stop. It just needs to fucking stop. Please be a goddamn grown up and move the fuck on.
You know how you can make the world a much cleaner, nicer place?
Kill the trolls.
Destroy Twitter.
Actually, Facebook's worse at this point than Twitter.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't know. I have went ahead and downgraded the people that were too strident to where I'm seeing less posts from them. And my Facebook feed is fairly tranquil now.
So is mine. I'm following a fuckload of people.
I'm just not interested.
Nope, not interested at all. On Twitter, the channels I follow, most of them are not political. I only really talk about my work or weird science stuff. I stay away from anything else. There's no point. If I want to tackle something that I think is important, I will do it in my fiction. And I will try and be as masterful as I can when I'm doing it. I just think it's much more constructive to create something rather than try and destroy something to get that across. Destruction is not a good thing in this case. It's destroyed the country essentially.
One of the things that I do in my fiction, it's not that I intentionally stay away from controversial things. It's that they just don't interest me as part of my fiction. I write adventure stories. I don't have to get up on a soapbox and talk about politics or religion or any of the other things that are bound to get people all spun up. So I don't. I have a good adventurous time dealing with just popcorn issues. And that's me. And I understand that.
Yeah, it just depends on what you want to write, how you want to write it. I mean, there's a billion different ways you can write an apocalypse story. There's a billion different ways you can write a thriller. There's a billion different ways to write anyone. If the story sticks with you and the characters stick with you, then by all means, go ahead with it. Just don't be surprised when certain things could come out of it. It's just it's the same thing. You see right or left going after, celebrities, writers, whomever that say something stupid or just because they write something and they get attacked. How does that help anybody?
It doesn't.
And it doesn't turn anything into discourse. It just turns it into a fucking neckbeard rage fest. Fucking quit it already.
It's become a scorched earth sort of thing with too many different aspects of society. If you don't have the same view as the person doing the speaking, then they're going to come after you with the pitchforks and the torches.
I just ignore them.
It's easy to do until they mob up.
Well, no, what I mean is I ignore voices I disagree with or that I think are just vitriolic and everything else. Just ignore them. I unplug. Mm-hmm. Go away. Fuck off. If you want to peddle that shit, go peddle on your channel. Don't fuck up my channel or my life with your bullshit.
Can you imagine somebody that does that they're basically disconnected from Facebook and everything else, and they're publishing whatever they want to, and the internet is on flames, and they have no idea that it's happening at all? That sounds kind of awesome, actually.
That actually sounds like something that could actually very well happen.
It does. You're like, oh, you're that guy, the one they're talking about on the internet.
What's the internet?
What? What do you mean? What do they say? No, I don't want to know what they're saying.
What's the fucking internet? I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I meant somebody that intentionally just doesn't do it. Doesn't have a Facebook account, doesn't have Twitter, doesn't even do email. Just screw that stuff. I'm going to write. I live out here, wherever I live, doing whatever I'm going to do. The only time I go online is to publish my stuff, and I don't look at any reviews. I don't know anything. He has no idea that the universe is in flames because of whatever
If you want to contact me, just write me a letter. I've had the post office deliver it.
No, if you want to write me, go ahead and write the letter, and don't put any address on it. The postman will know where to take it. Which is nowhere.
Oh God. Yeah. To live in perpetual ignorance.
Or give somebody else's address, your high school rival's address. All the nasty meal go there.
The problem with this is at some point you have to get paid.
That's true, but you'll know your publishers will know how to get the money to you. Just the fans wouldn't know how to contact you.
Okay,
I can see that as a story element. That could be fun because the first thing he knows is the hitman arrives. What the fuck? What the fuck is happening here?
It's like the episode or the end of Jay and Bob Strike Back, and they're looking up the people who talk shit about them on moviepoopshoot.com and beating the fuck out of them.
Nothing like being curb stomped for your review on moviepoopshoot.com.
Well, some of those people deserved it.
The kid, the priest.
Yeah, the 13-year-old who was talking shit to them. Yeah, his youth didn't save him. I got a comment during Gears Inferno from somebody who was listening to the podcast, and I talk about, the main characters, they have pets, and the pets are very important in their lives. And I got an email from somebody saying, "God damn it, Cooley, if you do anything to that cat, I'm never reading you again."
I will tell you right now that I have, in a particular series, something bad happened to a cat. I immediately stopped watching that television series and never went back. It's totally true. There are people out there that will not tolerate that kind of behavior, and I'm one of them.
It just kind of depends on the taste and everything else, as we were talking about, but not everybody is some people. And
if you're going to murder a kid on screen, if you're going to do horrible things to a pet on screen, I am not your audience, and I will cease to be your audience the moment you do. That's just the way it is.
There is a reason why I do a lot of deaths off screen. And it's because I think it's much more effective to see the aftermath than it is to actually see the events.
Some people just do it for shock value.
Well, yeah, and splatterpunk and things like that. That's the point. That's the point. I stray away from that stuff because it's okay to have some gore, and I have some gore in my stories, don't get me wrong. But I don't.
Nobody dies in your story.
But that doesn't mean gore. There's no gore with the black, or not really, unless it lops your head off or something before it dissolves you. It doesn't leave any blood. It leaves nothing behind except your spare change in the skeleton of your whatever you had in your pockets. Anyway, what was I battling about?
On-screen deaths.
On-screen deaths. I try not to revel in them. And there's a difference between putting it out there, getting it over, and not wallowing and reveling in it. And there are a lot of people who love splatterpunk. I mean, that's the point of the genre, is to do terrible, horrible things. There's whole areas of the horror industry that what those movies are supposed to be. Buckets of blood. That's what they are. And that's fine if that's what you're into. I'm not into that. I like to set up, like if somebody's going to get their teeth pulled out with a wrench, I'm not going to describe that scene, or a pair of pliers, rather, a wrench. I will show the victim afterwards, rubbing their tongue over where the tooth used to be in the next scene. That's how I will handle it, because I think it's much more effective to do it that way than actually show that happening. So that's just how I handle it. Not everybody handles it the same.
Everyone has the things that they cannot accept. Some of those things are more common, though. Like we were just talking about, kids and pets. That's a very common third rail.
Yeah, it's a third rail.
You should be very cautious about touching that one.
And that was a tough thing for me to deal with in Closet Treats, because basically the antagonist is murdering kids. And I did none of that on screen. Absolutely none of it. And somebody thought that I had insinuated that the main character of the book had been, sexually molested. I never said that. Partly because I didn't want to get near that third rail. I never said that happened, but some people thought it was understood, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, the implication was there. So that it was possible.
Did you get taken to task for that?
No, not at all. In fact, somebody was like, I really like the way he handled that. And I was like, I hadn't really, I tried to not make that the thing because that's what I was worried about. And people picked up on it anyway. But I didn't get dinged for it because of the way I handle it. I didn't have to go into any of the details.
Well, let's look at a series where they do handle, terrible things happening on screen in a way that the audience will accept. Let's talk about Dexter.
Oh, God.
For those of you who don't know, in the series Dexter, the main character is a serial killer.
Yes.
He has standards, though. There are things that there are people that he will not kill.
Yes.
He has a target list of the type that are acceptable to kill.
He goes after the murderers. He goes after murderers and other serial killers.
And that was a way that the person that wrote that, I don't know if that was based on a series of novels.
It is.
But that's
They're not nearly as good as the series, by the way.
I've never read any of it, but that's how they got around this being an issue, is they chose their targets carefully.
Yes.
You can take something that's awful, like killing people on screen. If you pick the right people to kill, it's okay. If you pick the wrong people, you get the negative backlash.
Well, the other thing Dexter did is the most violent scenes in that were all after they took place. You walked into the aftermath most of the time.
There were some seriously messed up scenes.
Oh, yeah. There was some seriously messed up shit that they left behind, these people, or Dexter himself. But the bottom line is, when he finally killed his victims, it wasn't like he was carving them up with a steak knife. It was always one stroke, one kill. He didn't carve them up. He didn't use a chainsaw. For the most of the time, he used the chainsaw afterwards.
He wrapped them up in saran wrap.
Yeah, after he cut them up. It was a great disposal.
Well, no, he wrapped them up before he killed them.
Well, yeah, he wrapped them up before he killed them so that the blood would spill out.
They're basically wrapped up like a mummy, laying there for him to talk to and tell them why they're going to die.
Why they're going to die. Yeah.
He usually said, "Why did you do this thing that you did?
Yeah.
I really want to know.
Before you die, I'm curious." And that was also
he's like the serial killer Columbo. Oh, this just one of the son on the question.
Yeah. I just got this question before I plunge this blade into your heart and you stop breathing or thinking or anything else. But that's why that worked, was because of the way they set that up. And sure, there were still some people that show made very uncomfortable and they would never watch it. But the bottom line is, the character was likable, even though he was doing all these horrible things, because as damaged as he was, you could relate to just how he saw the world. And that was the writing, that was the acting, that was the directing. Forget the gore and everything else. And him killing people. That's not what that series is about. It's about a person who
it's about the journey of a person that doesn't feel trying to get to a place where he does.
Right. And he's not a narcissist. He's just incapable of emotion, of feeling or attaching to emotion. And he's faking it. He's trying to fake it to stay hidden.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. But the thing is, the reason why the show works is because over those episodes, Dexter starts to feel things. He starts to realize that he has been feeling things. He just didn't understand what those things were.
Now, to be clear, at the end of the series, they went in a different direction, and I didn't particularly care for the way they ended the series.
I didn't like the last two seasons of the series.
So the way they wrapped it up, taste didn't match up for me. They didn't go for actually completing the journey that they were taking. He walked away.
Well, we think he did.
That's what it looks like.
We think he did. I don't think he walked away. He just moved shop.
Well, I don't mean that he walked away from that, but he had a chance to get that emotional bonding that he never had, but he turned his back on that person and walked away.
Correct. So, I mean, it was handled well. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point, is it was handled well. And I think that's the trick. That comes from experience. That comes from imagination. That comes from reading books where the authors get it right.
Have you ever seen any of the episodes of Lucifer?
I've seen everything that's on Netflix.
Okay. That is a terrible human being. There is nothing
Human. That's part of the problem.
There is nothing validating about any of the impulses and behaviors of Lucifer. But the show is wildly entertaining.
I disagree with that completely. Like Dexter, he is someone who is trying to crawl out from under the shadow of what they have been made into. And that is really interesting. Although I did like the first season better than the rest of them, because in the first season, he wasn't as stupid. Because his social graces got worse in season 2 from then on. First season, he was actually like human for the most part. I felt like seasons 2 through 4, they kind of took him back a step.
I could sort of agree with that.
So they could try and, elongate the journey. Anyway, regardless. Yes.
I can't wait to see what they do on Netflix now that they've been the ones that picked up doing season 4.
Oh, they picked up season 4?
Yeah, it was canceled on the main network, and they picked it up.
Oh, good.
They picked it up, and God only knows.
Now they can really go crazy. Yeah.
Now they can really go crazy. And considering that the show ended, spoiler alert, season 3 ended with her finding out that he really was the devil. So God only knows where they're going to go in season 4.
Now we get to see all the hedonism going on in the club and not cut away from it.
I know that, talking secondary characters, Mazikeen.
Yeah, Maz.
Oh my God, she is awesome.
She needs her own show. She really does. Anyway, we digressed again.
You did.
I did. You started this.
I said we did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Lucifer, the only reason he's likable is because he's so jacked up, and you understand exactly why he's so jacked up, but he's also a rampant narcissist. But the show works because he's slowly being dragged out of that one piece at a time. And he's not real bright in learning it. So
no, he's not.
No, he's not. He just does not get it. Does not understand why he does things that piss people off. He doesn't understand it. Doesn't get it.
Another show that has a bunch of weirdness that way is Preacher.
I can see that. I haven't really seen much of that show. I've only seen like 2 episodes.
I saw the first season, and I didn't stop watching it because I didn't like it. I just didn't have enough time. My wife continues to watch it, and so I occasionally get to see bits and pieces of it happening, and it still seems very entertaining.
No, you should read the graphic novels.
She has. She's read all the graphic novels.
You should.
I have not looked at a single one of them.
They are amazingly bizarre and kick-ass. It's probably one of the greatest graphic novel series that has been made.
I've got it downstairs wherever she's got them packed up because of packing everything for the flood, but I'll look at them when we unpack enough to find them again.
I know how that is. Well, speaking of controversial topics, we should bring this show to a close.
We'll bring it to a close with the final thoughts. Don't be afraid to write whatever you want. Just go into it with your eyes open and know that you may cause a reaction. That's all we can say.
And, if you're trying to make a point, like Terry said earlier, it's a little bit different if you find a way to not make it preach. If you make it preachy and you talk directly to the audience and say, you're a bad person, you should do this, then they're not going to get anything out of it.
If you write a story about a religious character, that's different than having the narrator preach at you. Having a character preach at you is something that you can accept to a certain point. Just saying.
Yeah. I think it's actually much more beneficial when the character actually questions their beliefs, because it gives them a chance to grow. Gives them a chance to grow. So I like those stories where they have a chance to do that, because I think it's a much more interesting story. So anyway, there you go.
There you are. All right, folks, if you would like to have us talk more about this particular subject, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can find Paul on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. And of course, you can find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group. You can find the video episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. We have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com for hosting the audio versions for your ear holes. And of course, if you would like to support us even further, you can go to patreon.com/DRS podcast, whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can get exclusive and unique content. That's right. I said unique because nobody is like us. Nobody is like us.
You said unique.
I did say unique. I did.
Why?
Because we're different. And part of the uniqueness of that is having our $10 patrons' names read on the air like Paul is about to do.
All right. Our $10 patrons this month are JD Barker, Veronica still telling stories from a padded room with a microphone, Jaguar, Jack F6, Sick Hicks, Nick 6, Slick Bricks with Picks and Sticks, Kelson, Green Glass Globes, Globe Greenlee, Isabel Cushy, Rick, hey, what does this do? Shaw, Lisa Slack, Nathan Cosby, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Drew waiting for tornado season Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thank you, folks. We appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you very much.
And with that, we are out of here.
Another episode in the can. I guess we'll just have to come back next week and do it again.
That's what we do.
Yep, that's what we do. All right. We'll see you, listeners.
Bye-bye, folks.
Viewers or whatever. We'll talk. You know, this YouTube audio thing is so goddamn confusing. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing anymore.
We'll see you, viewers. We'll hear you, listeners.
And we'll read your emails or tweets or whatever the hell. You know what? We're just going to end the damn show before this gets any more complex. Bye!
Awkward!
Say goodbye, Terry.
Goodbye, Terry.
Thank you.